Though neither Ati nor Baba had been privy to anything she had made on it, for obvious reasons. Roya waited to turn the recorder off before letting out a sigh, tapping her pen on the open page of her journal. She didn't have a full script yet, and to be honest, she wasn't feeling too confident that this was going to turn into the riveting episode she was striving for. She flipped through her notes just to see if there was another apartment or tenant that might make for a better episode. The red leather-bound journal was supposed to be her feelings journal, which was code for anger journal, and why Roya suspected Ati had chosen the red color. But Roya had quickly found that a better way to control her feelings, including anger, was not to write about them, but to write about other people, particularly the other people in her building. And Roya did consider it her building. Even though it had been built over 100 years before she was born, she doubted anyone knew more about the regal bricks, the rickety, old-fashioned elevators, or even the hidden graffiti on the bottom of the stairs between floors 3 and 4. Her parents had moved here when Ati was 5 months pregnant with Roya, so every single one of her memories was tied to this grand old building with the weeping willow in the front. Roya once heard an older resident call the building the Queen of Ocean Parkway, and that's exactly how she'd thought of it ever since. She'd even named her podcast after it. And this queen was alive. Sure, she was old, and there wasn't a first-time delivery person who didn't get confused by having to manually pull open the door of the ancient elevator. But this queen had seen more things, more lives, more stories, more wars, more pandemics, more births, and more deaths than any one person in existence. Roya dedicated the journal to her, and it now did double duty as her manual for both of her jobs. She used the journal to document ordinary things like when the elevator broke down, at least once every other week, and when the boiler needed fixing, things she'd need to report to her mom. But she also wrote about the residents, facts and observations and speculations that often found their way into her podcast. Each episode was dedicated to one apartment and the residents who lived in it, though for their privacy and hers, she changed their names. Even the Queen went by her initials. The podcast was titled Coop on all platforms. In her heart of hearts, Roya suspected that she was born to be an investigative journalist, someone who found out the truth about things. Though right now, she settled for honing her storytelling skills. Like when she took a deep dive into why exactly the family in 4J, the wacky thwackers, could sometimes be heard hammering deep into the night. Were they experimental percussionists deeply invested in their craft? Or were they practicing for a prison break? But nothing seemed to be holding Roya's interest for long today. She left the storage room thinking maybe she'd try again after a snack. She was lost in her thoughts when the elevator door opened, revealing 2 people. "Good morning, Roya." It was Katya and Stephanie from 3G. Katya had a basket of laundry in her arms, and Stephanie was in her maroon hospital scrubs. "Good morning," Roya said enthusiastically. Katya and Stephanie were 2 of her very favorite tenants. They were in their late 20s, and when they'd gotten married 2 years ago, Roya and her parents had been guests. Stephanie was an ER resident, too, and usually had some interesting story to tell about who had walked into her hospital that week. "Did you see that a new restaurant opened on Church Avenue?" Katya asked Roya. "I think it's called Taste of Bangla. Do you want to try it out with us next week?" "I'd love to," Roya said. "It's a date, right, Stephanie?" Katya turned to Stephanie, and Roya was surprised to see that Stephanie didn't look enthusiastic at all. In fact, she was frowning. "Right," she mumbled. The 2 of them had already started to walk away when Stephanie added to Katya, "In order for us to go on this date, you would still have to be here next week." "Of course I'm going to be here," Katya said with a laugh. "Where else would I be?" They had turned the corner and their voices were fading away when Roya heard Stephanie say, "I don't know."